Action.
Hello and welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice. Stick with us a couple of seconds and we will teach you how to ride a bicycle. You're back.
Oh, and we're back. And today we're going to talk about bicycles, but first some housekeeping.
You have a housekeeping button?
I do.
Very nice.
Oh. And we want to send out thanks to our moderators, Jimmy Fast, Man in the Barn, Joel Lewicki, and Jason Eunice, and occasionally Brian Eagle.
Did I forget Brian?
I forgot to put his name on the screen. There
I'm sorry,
so many
Brian.
Wonderful people to thank.
I'll correct that immediately after the show.
And that's my fault too, because I could have said something earlier.
You could have done what? What do you do when you tell me something's wrong? What do you do?
Tell you something wrong.
Yeah, when you want to tell me something's wrong on the slide set, what do you do? What do you say?
I don't know what.
Eh.
Oh, eh. Yeah, I could do that. So that's like, something like that. Anyway, thank you to our moderators for being in the chat room and keeping everything positive and safe and happy. Thank you. Presentation today will be followed by an open Q&A. If you have additional questions beyond what we talk about today, that's fine. Although you may just have so many about today, you might not get to anything else.
Do me a favor and say something. I feel like your audio is low, but...
Is my audio low?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Go ahead, talk to me. Back up again.
All right. And next, we'll talk about what?
I just blew it out again. Okay, so are we ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So today we're going to talk about riding a bicycle through Forrest Fenn's treasure poem. And some of the material that I'm going to be using today as examples came from a YouTube channel called Smart Every Day, and we'll give them credit where credit is due. We're going to use a little bit with permission. But first, I always like to start with Fenn quotes. And this is a set of quotes that came from an entry on Dale Neitzel's blog made in February of 2017. And it was the result of Fenn providing Neitzel some questions and responses that he had given to a group of middle school children. There was lots of them there. I strongly recommend you go read it. It's kind of interesting. But you could tell Fenn was new and approached it as if he was talking with children. And so there's some interesting insights into Fenn when you get those. But the ones that apply today, I think, are these. So one of the children asked him, what is your favorite outside activity? And since they're probably all sitting in the same classroom with their teacher, they're coordinating kind of their questions, which is, I suppose, is a smart thing to do. Perhaps we should think about that more often ourselves. What is your favorite outside activity, the child asks, and Fenn responds, fishing. Gee, who would have guessed? Another one of the children asks the question, when you wrote your poem, what were you thinking about fishing? And he says, no, I was thinking about the poem, indicating that he wasn't thinking about where warm waters, his location for warm water salt or a special place. He wasn't thinking of it in terms of geography or activities. He was thinking about how to structure that poem so that it made the most sense, not only to him, but potentially the finder. And I think that's what he hoped, that he was constructing a poem that was easy enough to understand by the person that actually finds the treasure. Then one of the children has a short preamble, but finishes with, is it referring to a waterfall? And the response to that is not as important to me as the comment about the waterfall as how Fenn finishes the response. The child asks, is it referring to a waterfall, meaning water's high in the poem? Fenn responds, you guys seem to be hung up on waterfalls. And then he says, don't try to change my poem to fit your ideas. So that's an interesting way to put that, because the implication is, well, for me, it's always been, shouldn't I be changing this poem to fit my ideas? How am I going to come up with these clues, except making and perhaps even forcing the transition between what he wrote in the poem and what my ideas are. But here he tells the child, don't try to change my poem to fit your ideas. The second implication is, that my ideas in the poem are the correct ones. You're going to start modifying the poem and giving it your ideas, and they're going to be incorrect. Unless you're the finder of the poem and you've thought exactly like Fenn has thought.
Finder of the treasure.
Yeah. What did I say?
Poem.
Oh, I'm sorry. Finder of the treasure. Then Fenn finishes the whole thing by providing some advice to the children, and in the process, he misquotes a poem that was written by Hughes Means back in the late 1890s.
Means or Mearns?
I'm sorry, Mearns.
Okay.
Hughes Mearns, called Antigonish. And Antigonish is a city in Nova Scotia in Canada. And Fenn writes, now, I don't know for certain that Fenn actually wrote it this way. It could have been an error in transcription that Dale may have made when he posted it to his website. But so I'm going to go with it. I'm going to assume that it was Fenn making the mistake and trying to establish the sense of paradox for the children. And I think that's what his objective was. This sense that there is some paradox to all of this. Could have been a hint. Fenn writes, today, as I went up the stair, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Oh, how I wish he'd go away. And that was the misquote. The actual first stanza in Antigonish is, yesterday upon a stair, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. I wish he'd go away. I don't think the misquote necessarily is a hint. I think where the hint is that what Fenn attempted to write and what Mearns wrote was a paradox. And he has the same paradox in the three stanzas that are in his poem. You can find it, read it. It's not going to get you any closer to the treasure. But you should know these things. So then beyond that, about the poem, and I think this is all about the poem. As a matter of fact, one of the results of all the research that I did this last week is that we're going to have to do a show like we did on waters last week, except the phrase that we'll use instead of water or waters is, quote, the poem, unquote, because it deserves it. He's used that phrase a lot, and I think we should review each one of the times that he said that. So, in Mysterious Writings in 2013, he said, and I'm going to repeat some of these things because you should all be aware of them. All of the information, quote, all of the information you need to find the treasure is in the poem, unquote. Then, again, in Mysterious Writings in February of 2013, he wrote, that should be a 0, sorry, down there.
Oh, I see.
The person who finds the treasure will have studied the poem over and over, and thought, and analyzed, and moved with confidence. And this is a common refrain with Fenn. He is constantly saying that you need to read the poem over and over. And when I first started reading that, or kind of looking at that and understanding it, I read the poem. But a lot of the time, I spent a lot of the time not quite understanding why I was reading the poem over and over again, as if something magical was supposed to happen if I read it, often. Mm-hmm. If I read it 10 times a night and then went back to it. Mm-hmm. But he had an ulterior motive for that, and I think it is found later on. In 2016, he gets a question in Mysterious Writings from a poor soul whose name is Mary. I'm not even close to solving your riddle. I've tried for months and nothing works. I'm not asking for a clue to the treasure. I'm asking for a clue to the clues. Please help me. And you know what Fenn does? He gives her a clue. Mm-hmm. He responds by saying, the solve, a word that I don't like using, is difficult for many searchers because their minds think the clues are tougher to decrypt than they really are. Telling us that we're overcomplicating it. Not only are we reading it over and over again, but in the process, we're not letting our brains do the work. We are putting our brains to work and overcomplicating it. Some say they are trying to think outside the box, as if the solution lies somewhere out there. Until now, I have resisted telling them to get back in the box where their thoughts are comfortable and flow more easily. Good advice. And he's telling us again what to do. The blueprint is challenging. So the treasure may be located by the one who can best adjust. And that word adjust is significant because it applies to the rest of this presentation. It is going to be a question for the finder of the treasure, is how much and how well they adjusted. To illustrate my point, Fenn says, go to YouTube, Smarter Every Day. Now, for those of you that don't know what Smarter Every Day is, it's a YouTube channel hosted by a gentleman whose name is Destin Sandlin. Destin is an engineer and started a YouTube channel several years ago with this concept of, I'm going to teach myself something new every day. Now, as always in YouTube, it got progressively more complex, so he wasn't doing it necessarily every day. He wasn't vlogging necessarily every day, but he was getting smarter with every YouTube video that he posted. One of the things that you'll notice if you do a YouTube search for Smarter Every Day, you're going to find his channel. And you're going to go to his channel page. And for those of you that build YouTube channels, like us and like Dustin, you'll discover that YouTube gives you the opportunity to put what they call a trailer video on your channel, and then to put your effectively favorite video. And it's used in two ways. If you're not a subscriber to our channel, for example, already, you will go and you will see a trailer of Shelley telling you why you should subscribe to our channel. If you are already a subscriber and you go to our channel, you will see a video that we've already produced that is not a trailer, that does not promote the channel. It's simply one of the videos that we like putting up on our channel page. The video that you'll see in the trailer section of Destin's YouTube channel is the one entitled The Backwards Brain Bicycle. Now, Destin, as I said earlier, has 5 million subscribers. This particular video has had over 17 million views. So Fenn knew exactly what he was doing when he told Mary to go visit this YouTube channel page. She was going to see the backwards, I assume, he assumed that she was going to see the Backwards Brain Bicycle video, open it up and watch it. And when you get to that page, it's Destin. It's a very short video. I highly recommend that if you haven't already watched it, then go and watch it. It's about 8 minutes long. And what I want to do now is play just a very short clip from that video, because there's a lot of it that can be used in terms of our thinking. So just watch this short clip.
So here's what I did. It was a personal challenge. I stayed out here in this driveway and I practiced about 5 minutes every day. My neighbors made fun of me. I had many wrecks, but after 8 months, this happened. One day I couldn't ride the bike and the next day I could. It was like I could feel some kind of pathway in my brain that was now unlocked. It was really weird though. It's like there's this trail in my brain, but if I wasn't paying close enough attention to it, my brain would easily lose that neural path and jump back onto the old road it was more familiar with. Any small distractions at all, like a cell phone ringing in my pocket, would instantly throw my brain back to the old control algorithm and I would wreck. But at least I could ride it.
So, Destin eventually learns how to ride the Backwards Brain Bicycle. It takes him 8 months worth of practice at about 5 minutes a day. He then takes it on tour with him because he travels all over the world now, representing his YouTube channel, talking about the things that make him, or he feels like make him smarter every day. And he challenges people in the audience to try to ride the bicycle. And they try all kinds of approaches, and of course nobody can do it. Our brain isn't configured that way, and I'll explain why in just a moment. So if you continue to explore this area of the Backwards Brain Bicycle and watch this video, eventually Dustin says that he had one made for his son. Oops. All right, well, I'm gonna have to go back here just a second, I'm sorry. One of the things that you're gonna find in this video are what I refer to as pithy quotes. They're very usable, but I'm not certain necessarily that they're quite helpful to you. But he's got some great quotes in there that one should you know, they're the kind of quotes that you kind of pin on your wall to remind you that you need to go the extra step. And that's why I refer to them as pithy. He says, quote, "My thinking was in a rut," unquote. And it was obvious that it was in a rut, but it can get out of that rut. Quote, "I had the knowledge of how to operate the bike, but I did not have the understanding." And this is probably the most significant quote in the entire video. And I've actually turned it into a quote that you're going to be able to use. Quote, if you change any one part, it affects the entire control system," quote, unquote. And what he's referring to is the concept of riding a bicycle. So we know how to ride a bicycle because we know the rules of riding the bicycle. It has two wheels. It has a set of handlebars and whose turn matches the way the front wheel operates in terms of changing direction. It has gears, it has pedals that drive the rear wheel. So we have this model that we learned as children when we were learning how to ride a bicycle, and it took some time. As a matter of fact, over the years, after having 6 children, I actually had a process to teach my children how to ride a bicycle, and it could be accomplished in one day. Now, that sounds funny, but they were 4 and 5 at the time, and it started out without riding a bicycle. So it was a lot of fun to teach them. So, but if you change any one parts of the system, it affects any one part of the control system. It affects the entire system. And that's the point he was trying to make. Quote, "It was like I could feel some kind of pathway in my brain that was now unblocked." And what he's referring to is the moment in time in which suddenly, perhaps even magically, he could ride the backwards brain bicycle. He was very proud of himself, but this was after 8 months of effort and at 5 minutes a day of practice. Then he came to the conclusion towards later in the video, he says, "Children have much more plastic brains than adults." I'm not sure that is necessarily true. I think maybe another way to put it is that all brains are equally plastic. It's just that adults have cluttered them up more than children. And I think that's what gives them this sense of what he refers to and what science refers to as neural plasticity. Because after just 2 weeks, probably more than just 5 minutes a day, because now you have a dad directing a son how to do it, it took 2 weeks for Destin's son to learn how to ride his own version, his miniature version of the backwards brain bicycle. And the conclusion that Destin came to, probably not only from his research, but in talking with experts in the field, was that children have more neural plasticity, more malleability, more brain malleability than adults. So I can't disagree with that, because I am neither an expert in the brain nor in neural plasticity or how the brain operates. I can only tell you what I know and what I experience. So there is another YouTuber that plays an important part in all of this. His name is Mike Boyd. And Mike makes YouTube videos about challenges that have been offered to him, and with the expectation that he can overcome and succeed at those challenges. And so the simplest example is world-renowned skateboarder Tony Hawk sent him a skateboard and challenged him to learn the skateboarding trick where you, I don't even know what it's called, honestly, where you jump up, flip the skateboard underneath you, and then land back on top of the skateboard after having flipped it and without flipping yourself. So that's an example of what Mike Boyd does. Destin actually had another copy of the backwards brain bicycle sent to Mike and challenged him to learn how to ride it, with some expectation, I'm sure, that as well developed mentally and physically as Mike was, it would take him a while to learn it. Now, Shelley made an interesting point as I was describing this part of the presentation to her. And I'm going to let her make that point in just a second, because I think it's an important one. Mike Boyd took the backward brain bicycle and he learned it in about 1.5 hours, 1.5 hours. Not 8 months, not 3 weeks, 1.5 hours. Now, that can indicate a lot of different things, and I'm going to let Shelley explain those to you. He then practiced for 4 hours, and he was good enough at that point that he was comfortable in making a YouTube video, finishing his YouTube video with shots of him riding the bicycle on this large grassy field with his friends, shooting drone shots, etc., etc. One of the other things that was interesting about this is that after Dustin had learned to ride this backwards bicycle, he hadn't challenged himself by riding a normal bicycle for a while. So on one of his trips to give a presentation about it, he was in, I want to say Copenhagen. It might be Amsterdam. It is either Amsterdam or Copenhagen. And he had a meetup with locals because there are more bicycles in the city than there are people. It's a bicycle city. And so what he challenged them to do was to bring him a normal bicycle and see how long it would take him to ride it. And he couldn't. For about 20 minutes, he had to relearn how to ride a normal bicycle. Now, the people that were standing there watching him thought, he's faking it. He couldn't convince them that it actually took him 20 minutes to ride a bicycle. Mike Boyd got off after having learned the backwards brain bicycle, got on a normal bicycle and went off riding it. The implication of that is that you're not destroying neural pathways, you're working around them and perhaps even creating new neural pathways. And Mike Boyd proves that. So I don't think some of the conclusions that Dustin came to before researching this further were necessarily correct, but it's a good place to start. And then you have to follow up and do your own research. The big question is, how the heck does this all apply to understanding Fenn's treasure poem? One of the things that Destin says, and I refer to it as one of those pithy quotes, is that knowledge does not equal understanding. The conclusion that he came to, he knew how the systems worked. He knew how a bicycle worked normally, and he knew exactly how the backwards brain bicycle worked. You can see he's sitting on it in the garage where they built it for him, these welders that work for the same company that he does. You can see that he's swinging those wheels, and he's got it all figured out. He goes, and he couldn't write it. He couldn't write it the first time he tried. And what he realized is that even though you understand all the control systems that are involved, there's a part of your brain that doesn't quite understand what's happening here because it's never happened before. So he concluded that knowledge did not equal understanding. I thought about that for a while, and I created what I call a gypsy's corollary to it. Fenn and Einstein have told us that imagination is greater than knowledge. But if knowledge doesn't equal understanding, then there's this strange component where knowledge in all of this is important because it is the basis for both imagination and understanding. Or is understanding the basis for knowledge and knowledge the basis for imagination? I'm going to let you play with that because I tried to make it open, and I think it's one of the things that you have to consider as you move forward with Fenn's poem. Now, a couple of hours after I posted our weekly lineup video, I got an email from a fellow searcher. And the fellow searcher had pretty much figured out what I was going to talk about and referred to the quote in Mysterious Writings and the Backwards Brain Bicycle video. And he asked, are you going to talk about a paradigm shift? And it was an interesting phrase to hear because I hadn't heard it in a long time for any reason. No, this is not a paradigm shift, nor does it require a paradigm shift. Let me tell you why. Paradigm shift is what you use to describe a fundamental shift in the basic model. Now, mostly it was associated with economics, world geoeconomics. Let me give you an example. A little over 2,000 years ago, we as humans made a transition. We shifted the paradigm from hunter-gatherers to staying in one place and building agriculture. So that was the paradigm shift from hunter-gatherers. And it was a fundamental shift in our model of operations, and it had world-changing effects. It made us a smarter society. It made us a better society. It made us a more warlike society, interestingly enough. Then, a little over 200 years ago, we made another fundamental paradigm shift. And that fundamental paradigm shift was from agrarianism, the agricultural-based economy, to industrialism, the industrial-based economy. That was a fundamental change in the model and a paradigm shift. Then, around 1960, we made another paradigm shift from the industrial model to the informational model. What's interesting about 1960, and I can cite because I wrote a paper on it, why 1960 was important in all of this, but what's interesting about it from this perspective, it was Thomas Kuhn, a physicist, who wrote the first paper defining the concept of paradigm shift, and it was pretty much put in use for the next 20 or 25 years. In the industry I was in and around Washington, D.C., in high technology and production, it was used very often to describe changes, but not fundamental changes in models. And and paradigm shift, the concept and the phrase, went out of vogue around the 1980s. And the reason it went out of vogue was that what happened in 1960 was more than a fundamental shift in the modeling, because up until that time, we had gone orders of magnitude in change: 200,000 years of hunter-gatherers, 2,000 years of agrarianism, 200 years of industrialism, and it was supposed to be 20 years of informational age, and then it was going to change again. But what happened is the order of magnitude rule held. And so what happened as a result of the information, the change in paradigm to information, is that the fundamental model of the fundamental model started changing almost every 2 years. As a matter of fact, there's a law associated with it called Moore's Law. And Moore stated that you can double the capacity of a computer every 14 months. He was wrong. It's down to about 8 months. The point is, we're past paradigm shift here. We can't define it as a paradigm shift because we have explored our way beyond the concept of paradigm shift. So if someone says to you, you're going to have to experience a paradigm shift, you can say, no, it's more than that. We are beyond paradigm shift. Let me tell you where we're at. Oh, I wanted to go back. I'm sorry.
You can get it later.
Okay. So I want to go back to the fundamentals of the brain. Here's the model of the brain. And as adults, your brain operates much like a watch. And if you open up the back of something other than a digital watch, a traditional watch, you're going to see that there's all these gears.
You didn't bring your see-through one.
I could have. I do have a watch where you can see the back. And it's not a digital watch. And so you can look at all those gears, and you can look at the way they're operating with one another, all in synchronization. As long as you keep that spring wound, the watch will operate normally until one of several things happens. Number one, it runs out of spring energy. Number two, one of the gears loosens and perhaps even falls off. Every once in a while, you'll see a watch at a pawn shop where he'll tell you that gear has fallen off and you can actually shake it. Or that one of the gears loses a tooth, because that's all it would take, a gear losing a tooth for it to go out of synchronization and for the model to fail. That's kind of how your brain works. You've built over your lifetime, as a result of environment, experience, and education, a set of gears under which you operate. And so your world, when you see it, is constrained, if you will, and dominated by the set of gears that are already in your head. And that's not actually a good way to be, because the implication is the only way you can change is by knocking a gear out of synchronization. It's better than that for us. And it's more positive in some ways. It's not gears that are in our heads. It's neural pathways. And these neural pathways are both the result of, again, our education, our experience, and our environment, but they're learned. The brain learns these neural pathways. So when I ride a bicycle, when I learn to ride a bicycle, and why I can still at age 69 almost daily ride a bicycle and not fall off the bicycle, except occasionally. I once made a turn into a gate and went flying over that
I thought
gate.
you were talking about the bunk.
But the what?
The bunk.
Oh yeah, the bunk. I have programmed my brain to ride that bicycle. Now, if somebody offered me a challenge and said, I want you not to ride a bicycle, I want you to ride a unicycle. Well, a unicycle doesn't operate at all like a bicycle does. I've tried it. I can't do it. Not that I've tried it for any length of time, but I said to myself, my brain isn't configured this way. Yet, the guy that was showing me how to ride a unicycle popped up on that thing and went riding away. So if you were to challenge me to ride a backwards brain bicycle at age 69, I would have some neural pathways that I would have to overcome because I've been riding a bicycle as long as I can remember, since I was, a child. And I've ridden it the same way, and the systems operated the same way. They've improved over the years from single speeds to multi-speeds with better brakes and better gears and better shifting mechanisms and lighter weights, etc., etc. But the fundamental model hasn't changed. What has to change is the neural pathways. And you can change those with a little bit of practice. Your neural pathways are configured. Your brain is configured not as much like a watch with a bunch of immutable gears, but like a bowl of spaghetti. And all you're trying to do is get that spaghetti to the next meatball. And if you move the spaghetti enough, eventually you can get to the meatball. It's this set of neural pathways that are malleable, and you can change those neural pathways. Is it more difficult for an adult than it is a child? Yes, but not because a child's brain is configured differently. They have a brain that's about the same size as yours with the same sets of neural pathways. They just don't have things getting in the way. They don't have to unlearn the fact that you have to work from 8 to 5 in order to make a living, in order for them to do something that has nothing to do with making a living. They don't have to unlearn that. They don't have to get around that neural pathway. We can get around the neural pathway. Mike Boyd taught us how. What he said was practice. And now I want you to make that point that you made earlier.
There's a picture.
Do I want me to go back to the picture?
No, it's up next.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. There it is.
Oh, there it is.
See?
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Well, not only did Mike Boyd practice, and he did. He made a concerted effort. He didn't stop practicing until he got it, and he was able to do it well. But the thing about Mike Boyd is he has taken on many, many different physical challenges, which means he's constantly trying new things and working at them until he succeeds. So he has that pattern established that if I work at this long enough, I will succeed. So that gives him that confidence. Plus, he's got all these extra neural pathways that he's built. He's learned how to build them because he's done so many different things to get to that end result. So what I suggest here is that the best way for us to build new neural pathways is to not only practice in a concerted effort, but to try new things that we haven't tried ever before. Listen to other people's ideas with an open mind. Talk to people we haven't talked to before. That's one of the reasons that Toby and I, when we go out on a recon, we talk to people that we've never talked to before. We ask them maybe the same questions we ask everybody else, but everyone has a different answer. We want to listen closely to those answers, take in that information, and see if we can adjust any of our established neural pathways and make room for something new to come in.
So, which I think is a really ingenious approach to this, and it is not difficult to practice. One of the conversations that I have with my children is they're always asking me, when are you going to retire? And what they really mean is, when are you going to stop working? Because I feel like I am retired, but the fact that I'm learning, for example, how to fly a drone, or how to use a video stabilizer, those are not those are different from retiring. I have retired from being employed. I was employed by myself, but being employed to just continuous learning. And I think part of the process of continuous learning is this evolution of neural pathway development. Because I think if you can learn new things that are unrelated to Fenn's treasure, although it's always helpful if you can learn new things about anthropology or archaeology or geology or geothermal positioning, right? I think those are all benefits because they enable you, they enable your brain to accept the fact that it hasn't stopped changing, that these neural pathways are going to be in constant flux because you're the kind of person that's not going to stop learning, that you're going to keep learning. This concept of practice is important because it helps to develop the new neural pathways that you'll need to understand the poem. And it's something that Fenn has been telling us to do all along. From the very first, he says, here's what I would do. I would read my book in a normal manner, then read the poem over and over, slowly, thinking, then read my book again, this time looking for the subtle hints that will help solve the clues. Fenn is telling us to practice. He may not have known necessarily that he was also telling us to practice in a way that would help reconfigure the neural pathways in our brain. And what should happen is that the finder of the treasure will have configured their neural pathways. And if they were recognizable, if you could take a picture of them at that point, you would discover that those reconfigured neural pathways matched Forrest Fenn's neural pathways when it comes to the poem and the hiding of his treasure. So reading the poem takes on a completely different light. And that is, it's not just about reading the poem and imagining what the possibilities for Where Warm Waters Halt or Home of Brown or anything else are. It's reading the poem to reconfigure your neural pathways so that you can see the system, the control system, in a completely different way. So, as Shelley eventually asks me, what is your recommendation? My recommendation is that you do what Forrest Fenn told you to do. Read the poem and this.
Is there any tiny little hint, any tiny little clue you'd like to leave us with? He's thinking about it.
No.
Okay.
Well, I will give you a clue. Try to simplify if you can. That's good advice.
Now, you know where to find that video. It's on here. It's in our catalog of videos. I want you to go back when you get a chance, and I want you to look at his eyes when he makes that statement. Because what he's returning to in that look is the neural pathway that he configured to hide the treasure. All that you need to know about Forrest Fenn is in his eyes in the few seconds in that video.
Okay. Well, the other thing I would recommend is if you are a person who likes to meditate, meditate on the poem and see what happens. Moving on.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to the chat room and Q&A. Who knows? We may not even have any Q&A today. But if you like what we do and you'd like to reward what we do with a small donation, go down to the bottom of the page and look for the $, click on it, and you can make a super chat donation that we'll get as a result of our effort here. I'm going to go back to full screen. Are you ready to go to Q&A?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to open up this window for you then. We're going to be off screen here, but on screen here. All right. Your backup is right there. So how far back up do I need to go?
That's Top Chat.
Oh, I can't change it. I'm sorry. It's okay. It for the most part, it's there. The only
I
thing
think
that
so.
doesn't show up in Top Chat is if someone gets crazy.
Oh, okay.
So you can take it from
All
there.
right.
Do you want to use the scroll button? So I'm going to move this over for you.
No, you can do it. Doesn't matter. All right. Good morning and hello. Good afternoon and good evening. Man in the Barn is here. Hello. Joel Lewicki, William Ortiz, Jeremy Branson, JL, and we just got $5 on the Super Chat from Scott K. And he says, bravo, totally thought this was going to be a video about the throw my bike in the high water comment. Glad I was wrong.
Yay. We're glad you were too.
Let's see. Back to Jeremy Milstead and Scott K again. Illinois Ghost, hello.
Hey, Richard, we'll see you tomorrow night.
Ryan Lowe from Colorado. Sledneck. Rock Flippers. Buddy Allen. Lori James. Dr. Brown from Fort Collins. DeCall Thomas. Jimmy Fast. Paul Wood. Hello from Rio Rancho, Paul Wood.
Hey, Paul.
Are you from Rio Rancho or are you just visiting? Cindy Guess, hello. Hello, Jason Eunice.
Jason Michael, how are you doing, sir?
Steve Gaghagen, Denise Bagley. Let's see. Steve Smitherman. Dave Erickson. Asset Marketing. And Jay. How would you say that? Gerard from Colorado.
I'm going to go with you. I think J-Ra is good.
Gerard. And Susan Heckenleibel. High Plains Drifter.
Lurking.
Lurking.
Well, you're not lurking. You just wrote lurking.
Well, we're glad you made yourself known because I hadn't seen that name before. Matt from Fenn World. And let's see. William Ortiz is in Tampa, Florida. Does anyone wonder, like me, why he used the phrase moved with confidence? Don't we always move that way? And why, after we analyzed, do we do this? And we have another super chat from William Ortiz. No question, just want to say thanks for the continuous feed of info on the chase.
You're welcome. Thank you, William, and you're welcome. And you're an iOS user, I guess, because you got the
1999.
Apple 1999 thing, so that's pretty neat. We can tell.
Did you want to address that asset marketing comment?
Where is it?
Moved with confidence. I'm pointing at it.
Let's see. Does anyone wonder why I use the phrase moved with confidence? Don't we always move that way? And why we, after we analyze, do we do this? So I don't know necessarily that we always move with the confidence of going straight to the poem. I think we move with the confidence of the information that we have to that point. I guess I'm speaking for ourselves here. We're always confident with where we're going and what we're going to do when we get there. And then the surprises come after you get there. And it doesn't make any difference how far down the pantheon of clues you get if you haven't envisioned, and I don't think you can, from the first clue to the last and gotten directly to the treasure. And I imagine no one has, because no one has a treasure. When you get there, at some point in your invocation of the clues that you have decided upon, you're going to get to that point where you go like, oh, well, I was confident right up until that point, and now my confidence is gone. Not in the sense that I've lost confidence in myself, but I don't know what to do from here. And I think that happens a lot, at least based on all the videos that I've seen produced on YouTube. There seems to be a lot of, we got to a certain point, and then we started beating the bushes, basically, is what it boils down to.
But why would Ben say you'll move with confidence?
Because you will have visualized all the clues. By that point, you will have a visual. You may not know precisely where they are, but you don't need to know precisely where they are. You need to know precisely where warm waters halt. And then you need, as we said in a video from a couple of months ago, you need to have visualized each of the clues in your head, and so that you know what you're looking for. You don't need necessarily need to know where you're going to look for them, but you need to know what you're looking for. And I think that's where the level of confidence comes in.
Susan Heckenliable says, first my 12-year-old dog passed away. Then the next day my computer died. I've been a wreck. The chase has been a great distraction. Broken computer forced me back into the book and off of Google Maps.
Oh, well, it sounds like hopefully you've recovered from both of those events.
But we are sorry for your loss. And 12 years with an animal is a long time and a strong bond to lose. Mercury and Pluto, I believe, are both, not Pluto, Jupiter. Mercury and Jupiter, I believe, are both in retrograde. So hopefully things will start turning around for you soon, Susan. Alan K. Hello from San Jose. And Timothy Alkire, good afternoon. Dr. Brown says, maybe when one comes to a no trespassing sign, I would think you don't go past that.
we don't. We don't, and we don't recommend that anyone does.
Jan Kerb from sunny Scottsdale.
Been there.
Mm-hmm.
Why must I go? Why must I go? Thanks for that short video talking about Why Must I Go put a video on his YouTube channel where he was evaluating some of the resources dealing with the search on YouTube, and he said some very, very nice things about Shelley.
Oh, Jeff Treese, hello.
John Bobbitt's on a recon. Where at, John Bobbitt?
Yes, and you said hello to them. Joey Perro, hello. B Cross, hi.
Bicycle.
Joey Perro has tried the backwards bike.
Oh, how'd it go, Joey Perro?
He said it's a mind melt.
Mind melt. Mind melt. A Vulcan mind melt? No, that's not how that goes.
Not meld.
Meld. So I don't see any questions. We might get off with an easy day here today. Lots of hellos. How far down are we? I just feel like we're not going to get a question.
I don't know.
today.
There's no time. Hi, Mike Calazars.
Hey, Mike. See you tomorrow night.
Cowlings. Tom Marinock.
There's Brian.
Dr. Brown, Asset Marketing. Brian Eagle.
You know what? I didn't hook up the wired Ethernet. I'm going to go do that while you're...
Okay.
Because they're losing feed, and it's because we're on wireless.
Oh. Knowledge will take you from point A to point B. Imagination will take you everywhere. I like that. That's Jeremy Milstead. Although I think maybe Dr. Seuss said it first. I'm not sure.
Yeah. He's telling us we lost the feed a bit.
Actually, no, it was something totally family business. Oh. Okay, and Why Must I Go says about the backwards bicycle. Many people cannot... The same ones who can't back up a trailer because you need to turn the wheel the opposite way. Well, and again, you can learn to back a trailer from somebody telling you about it, but until you've actually been in the vehicle and started doing it, your brain's not going to get it. You have to say, oh, I get it now. It takes some practice. Sea Monkeyfication is here. Ben Parisi. Hey Cash, Gabriel.
All right, that should help Rebecca on the Ethernet.
Oh, okay. Matt says, imagination may be greater than knowledge, but imagination doesn't require knowledge. Imagination does require understanding. Set up as a triangle to view the correlation. Ah, he wants you to put it as a triangle instead of a... There we go.
No, Moore's Law was 14 months. My head is hurting.
Oh, another super chat.
I don't think that is.
Oh, no.
Try. Click on it.
I can't.
Oh.
You changed the page. There we go. Deborah Jensen, super chat. Have you considered the 9 clues could only be 9 words?
So that's a yes/no question. No, we have not considered it, but it certainly shouldn't be eliminated as a possibility any more than the 9 sentences should be eliminated as a possibility. I think it would be difficult to visualize. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's easier to visualize 9 words than well, no, that's true. It's easier to visualize 9 words than it is 9 multi-word clues or 9 sentences. So maybe it's as simple as that, reducing it down to the 9 words that are most important and working from there. But we have not attempted that, Deborah. But thanks to your question, I will attempt that tonight.
Amy Smith is here from Arkansas. Coach is here.
Hi, Amy. Amy, write me an email and tell me what frequently asked question you want Shelley to ask, because since you said you wanted it to be an aberration.
Oh, sure. The one week I had something in mind for you.
Oh, well, we can save it for next week.
And Why Must I Go says left versus right brain comes into play too. I find that creative people do not have as many preconceived notions. I think they're just more open to input.
Have you gotten down to Scott? He does say, guys, do us a favor, and if you do have a question for us, precede it with @AGK so we know it's a question and we're not trying to read into the conversation. So...
Well, Jay Ross says, how useful is it to try to retrace where searchers have been per the searcher's 200 feet Fenn quote?
The question is, it's a reasonable consideration. Whether or not it's reasonably possible is a different question. So not everyone shares their locations publicly. Here's what I can tell you. That in 2 situations back in 2013, in which when this first arrived, at Collected Works Bookstore, and I'm going to recommend that you go back to our Collected Works Bookstore video and watch it. There's a point at which Stephanie 30acre asks a question. She was there. She had traveled all the way from Chicago, and she asked Fenn the question. And I'm paraphrasing here, who's been closer, me or Dal? She called him Dal. And everybody laughed. The audience laughed at the question, not laughing at Stephanie, but thought it was a fun question. And Fenn didn't hear it. And so he leaned over to, not Douglas Preston, to Michael McGarity. And he said, what did she say? And Michael repeated the questions. And Fenn looked at Michael without looking at the audience. And he said, oh, if I told her that, she'd go crazy or something like that. It was a reference to her
have a heart attack.
Have a heart attack, right. Then later, so that was in mid-October, if I remember correctly. Then he did Moby Dickens, and he was asked a similar question, and he used the she again. If I told her that, she would go crazy, or something. In both cases, she referred to Stephanie 30acre, and so people were looking at some of the material that she had published up until that point, seeing if they could replicate her where she had been. But all of that's disappeared, and searchers have learned, not necessarily, we're some of the few searchers, I think, along with Cynthia and a couple of others who maintain blogs, who actually talk a lot about where they've been. Now, the problem is I've never had any indication from Fenn that we've been within 200 feet of the treasure. So the bottom line to your question is, if you knew who they were, then it would be a reasonable pursuit, but I don't think we know who they were. I don't think we have any idea who they are.
Or which search it was.
Or which necessarily search is what, because thousands, if not tens of thousands of searches have been made.
Sea Monkey Vacation says, Toby, so how and what are you going to change about your current thinking based on this new hypothesis?
So, pretty much everything. I mean, the bottom line is, if I look at it and just go back to the fundamentals of reading a poem over and over again and stop thinking about where I'm going for my next, for our next recon, the simple fact of the matter is, if in order for this to work correctly, in order for me to adapt to the idea that I need to change to the neural pathways, then one of the things that I have to do is quit thinking about what's in the future and just think about now. And that is reading the poem again and again. I've actually printed it out in both forms. That is the poetic stanza form and then the 9-sentence form. And as of last night, actually about 3 nights ago, I just started reading it over and over again to see what happens. So I think we're still going to go up north to Chama because we've got a commitment to do that. We've already promised ourselves we're going to do that. But I think one of the things that comes as a result of this hypothesis is that you have to stop thinking about where you're going next or what you know now, and attempt. And maybe it's that what you already know now has been the result of this kind of modification of your neural pathways already. Maybe that's how you've gotten there. I haven't gotten there that way, I don't think. And so what I have to do is at least test the hypothesis and see what happens. And that means not necessarily ignoring what we've done or the decisions we've made to this point, but at least putting them aside until I can see what else new happens.
Coach wants to know, can I donate by PayPal and ask a question there?
Sure, Coach, you can, because when you make a donation, they give you an opportunity to make a comment on your donation. You can put your question in there, and I'll answer it because I'll have your email address as part of your PayPal donation.
And that's at where?
PayPal.me/agypsyskiss.
And thank you. And as Man in the Barn says, you can also just email us at agypsyskiss@gmail.com.
But it's better if you do it. I'm going to send those questions over to you, Brian. You volunteered.
Why Must I Go asks, did Cynthia's comment that she exhausted all her Where Warm Waters Halt locations in New Mexico impact your search in New Mexico in any way?
No more than everybody who tells me that it's in Yellowstone and not New Mexico did. I've still got to find out for myself. So I love Cynthia, I respect Cynthia, but that doesn't necessarily mean we could go searching for the treasure together.
That's true. And her idea for Where Warm Waters Halt was different than ours. So
yeah.
Because she had exhausted her ideas, doesn't mean she exhausted our ideas. Oh. Wow. Paul Wood's been in Rio Rancho for 25 years and Northern Meadows for 8 years and went to Cibola.
Where's that in relation to your?
It's that one by the bus
okay.
terminal there.
Yeah.
By the mall. Sean NM is here.
Hey, Sean NM, are you going to be on the panel? I haven't checked my email today. Let me know if you're going to be on the panel tomorrow so I can send you an invitation.
Dagmar Did It is here. And Charlie, how do you say that?
Fuchs.
Okay. Where is Cynthia?
Cynthia is at the moment at her home, I assume in Rio Rancho. She's back from Montana.
And she'll be here tomorrow night.
She'll be here tomorrow night. She's our guest on the panel. We've asked her to come back as a guest and talk about her trip to Montana. We're going to let us ask questions about it. So if you want to be in that chat room when Cynthia's there, you'll be able to ask her questions about her trip to Montana. And what I've discovered about Cynthia is she doesn't have any problem sharing all her information with anyone. She just lets it roll, doesn't she?
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah. I think it's a good approach.
Well, she hasn't found it yet, so I mean, there's some things that are future things she doesn't share, but she shares all her past.
Yeah. Why Must I Go is trying to make up for the fact that he said he liked you better than me.
By doing what?
He said, I love you too, Toby.
Oh, I see. So William Ortiz says, Shelley, do you study astrology and astronomy for your studies with couples therapy? So it's just an interest of mine, and anything I learn that's helpful to me, I'm willing to share with other people in therapy or otherwise. And Susan Hecken-Leibel says, can you tell me if the word meek is in The Thrill of the Chase in any other place other than the poem?
Susan, I don't recall. I don't believe it is, but I'd have to look it up, and I can't do that right now because, I don't know. Can you scroll someplace else?
I can do it on here.
Okay, do it on there for just a minute. Let me check real quick, Susan. Let's see. Give me a second while Shelley is going through the Q&A here. Did you find your location?
Yes.
Okay.
Not boots, but bicycles on the ground. I like that.
So just give me, I can answer questions and do this simultaneously.
Okay. Buddy Allen wants to know, don't you think the backwards bike is inconsistent with simplify?
Susan, it is not. It is only one place in the book. And if I remember correctly, it's only one place in the Bible, too. Isn't that interesting? Not that I'm that knowledgeable about the Bible, but I want.
So do you think that the backwards bike is inconsistent with simplify?
No, actually, because it's the lesson to be learned. It's not the backwards bicycle. It's the lesson to be learned about neural plasticity. And what Fenn is telling us is that if you read the poem and the result is you have this complex solution, you're probably wrong. What you should do is read the poem and modify the neural pathways in your brain so that the solution is as simple as you can get it, not as complex as you can get it.
And I'm sure he found that a lot of people can be very rigid once they've come up with the idea of where the treasure must be, and they don't listen to anybody else's ideas or input that they get when they go out and look for it even. They're just determined that they're going to stay in this one spot forever until they find it there in that spot. And he's telling them, you might want to rethink that.
Yeah. I thought there was a question up here that I saw. Go ahead with what you're doing.
Okay. Hello to Jeff Mann. Chad Maxwell is here. Hello, Chad. Scott K. says, do you ever bounce around the idea that the first two clues are not necessarily geographical locations?
No. No, we do not. And the reason is you need a starting point. You need to start in one place. And that means where Warm Waters Halt has geographic specificity and that the canyon down intersects with that geographic point. So no, I don't see how the little girl in India could figure out the first two clues if she didn't have that specificity.
Crow Dudley's here. Jason is sharing about his childhood.
Is it good?
Yes.
No, okay.
He says good things about you.
All right.
And Why Must I Go says, Toby is a good man.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
All right. You're forgiven. Why must I go?
AGK, Why Must I Go? Forrest also said it was a man who was with a woman who was the closest. I'm not sure where.
Yeah, that may very well be true. I don't know necessarily. I don't recall that quote necessarily. I was just talking about the instances at both the collected works and Moby Dickens, where he left me with the impression that it was the first time Stephanie actually asked the question. So I don't know. I know that the impression that Fenn had of Stephanie was that she had been closer than Dal, and so close that if she knew, she would have a heart attack. So I'm assuming that she was, one of those nearby searchers. I couldn't tell you whether she's one of the 200 footers or not.
And High Plains Drifter has a suggested topic of redefining the New Mexico Rocky Mountains with special guest Desert File.
Which she's done pretty much.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's up there where we're going back to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we actually did that High Plains Drifter. There's a video a while back where I basically eliminated everything west of the Rio Grande as being in the Rocky Mountains. So I took a lot of flack for that.
Dr. Brown says, if you were 100% certain about your solve and went and searched, but you were unsuccessful, would you return to the search again, or would you change your solve? How many trips would you make?
I don't see how you could be 100% certain. I don't think that's kind of certainty exists. It certainly never has for me. The hypothetical, at that point you get into the range of hypotheticals. What is certainty? And you start lowering the percentage. If you're 100% ethical, I just heard another YouTuber say that he was 100% certain of his solve, and they were planning to go out in June or July, something like that. And my initial response, my internal response to that is, if you're 100% certain of your solution, why are you waiting till July? I would hire, and if it was the matter of the snow, I would hire a snow truck or whatever I needed to do to go get that treasure. I don't think there's that kind of certainty in all of this. I don't believe there is 100% certainty in a solution. And the reason is I don't think you can get 100% certain without being boots on the ground. I think you get progressively more certain as you spend more time on the ground. I think it was Fenn that said you're not going to find this over a holiday weekend or, spring break. You're going to have to keep going back and back. And each time you go back, you're going to refine your search area, and you're going to refine your search paradigm. And you're not going to shift it, but you're going to change the model. And you're going to increase the amount of certainty with each case. And maybe the last time you're 100% certain and you can go directly to the treasure, but I don't see how I've been at this for 5-6 years now, and I've never had that level of certainty. I'm always exploring, which is what people who say they've been out multiple times, the person, if the finder who finds the treasure, if the finder who gets to the treasure goes there with a level of confidence that says, I went out one time and I recovered the treasure, that concept will effectively blow my mind, because I don't see how that is possible. I don't see how that is possible on any level. Going out once and finding the treasure, because I think if that was possible, it would have been done already. Most of the people that go out looking for the treasure go out more than once and experience some level of disappointment, and I don't mean discouragement, but certainly the disappointment of not finding the treasure. I remember when we went to Lander, I had so convinced Shelley that we had this all locked up that she took a dress along that she was going to wear when we drove to Sotheby's in New York to wear. That's so that's a hell of a lot of certainty.
Well, I believe in you.
No, it's confidence. Yeah, thank you.
By the way, we got another
from
Super
Dr.
chat
Brown.
Dr.
Didn't
Brown.
wait, huh? Wasn't going to wait till the PayPal.me.
And let's see, Brandon Waters is here from Hobbs. That's Hobbs, New Mexico. Ben Treasure Hunter says, do you think most of what Forrest says post 2013 is just misdirection?
Most of. So I actually have that opinion with everything that Forrest has said after December of 2010. We applied the Forrest Fenn died in 2010 rule because none of that other, if he had passed away, and not that I want him to, and I want him to live a long and fruitful life. But if he had passed away in December of 2010, all that other material, and actually I think if you get passed away in December 2012, all of that other material wouldn't exist. So there's only one of two possible reasons for that, for the material existing. One is misdirection, or maybe not as much misdirection as alternative directions, like don't think shiny objects, don't think about this, think about this. So that's one alternative. The other is just good marketing, sell more books. So I think you have to, part of your strategy has to include ignoring what he did after December 2010.
I don't know if this is something you can answer, but I'll go ahead and read it anyway.
Okay.
Susan Heckenleibel. Forrest Fenn said the first clue is begin it where warm waters halt. What if it is the first map location and the first clue is the first stanza? That seems to make more sense to me.
Susan, that falls into the category of anything is possible. I can't disagree with you because I don't have the treasure. I don't know where the treasure is. So that is possible.
Oh, Anna Graham is here. Hello, Anna. Thank you for the compliment.
I think Anna is a gentleman.
Anna is a gentleman.
Yes.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. You look marvelous.
I look marvelous.
She does, doesn't she? She always looks marvelous.
Okay. That's all I have
Wait,
other than compliments.
Dagmar, Shelley wants me to bleach my hair. We have a spaghetti brain. Shelley has angel hair. Angel hair, get it?
Angel hair pasta?
Angel hair.
Cute.
Okay, we're going back to OMB here. Not OMB, but
OBS?
OBS.
OBS.
Okay, so I need to make a transition here to an outro slide. So when I go to the outro slide, would you tell everybody what's happening? Is that my outro slide? What's happening the rest of the week?
What is happening the rest of the week? Well, tomorrow evening at 7:00 p.m., we're going to have our live panel show, and Toby will be running the show. Cynthia Meacham will be our guest. She's going to talk about her trip to Yellowstone, what she saw, what she plans for the future. And our other panelists will be Cal Lasers,
Mike Cowling and Richard McDonald, Illinois Ghost.
What about
I haven't heard from Sean.
Sean, okay.
That's why I was asking him.
Okay.
I guess I could check my email, but I'll have to do that.
And Pam?
And Pam, no, Pam's in Utah.
Oh, okay.
So she said she'd watch in the chat room, but she can't be on it.
Okay, and I'll be there as producer, just making sure that we get all of your questions answered. And then...
And what I've asked is for Cynthia to come back as a guest so that she can talk more about her trip to Montana. Now, that doesn't mean there's a lot of information out there already. She's written about it on her blog, and she also wrote an article on Dale's website. So you can find more information there. But I thought we could have her on. She could tell us the story. We could ask some questions. You guys in the chat room could ask some questions. So that's tomorrow evening, Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. And Shelley's going to be here. So we're going to be, rather than her in a remote location, we're going to be together operating kind of like this tomorrow night.
Yeah. And Thursday will be book club. We'll be doing chapter 9. I don't remember the name of the chapter. Gypsies? Something Gypsies.
Yeah, it's the Gypsies thing.
Gypsies,
something.
something.
I don't know what it is. I'll have to go back and look now.
And we'll discuss that on Thursday. Live chat at 1 o'clock here, same spot. Same bat time, same bat channel. Friday, of course, we'll have another Just the Facts, FAQs, asking Toby to answer another frequently asked question on Friday. That will be this week. Next week, Toby's traveling, so we're going to have a little bit of a reduced schedule. So be looking for our lineup to tell you all of the changes that will be happening next Monday or Sunday.
I'll try for it on Sunday. I have a good sense. So somebody just asked what happened to the Axarbin interview. Oh. We had to move that out with his permission because I wanted to get Cynthia on as quickly as possible about her Montana trip. So I asked Axarbin first to push it out to the 18th. But Shelley reminded me that I'm leaving on the 18th for the East Coast, so he'll be on the Wednesday the 25th. He is after Cynthia tomorrow, Axarbin is our next guest. But he won't be on till the 25th because we won't have a panel next week because I'll be traveling.
So maintain your neuroplasticity whenever Toby tells you next week's we're going to talk about this.
Yeah, because
things come up,
man.
And we can always make little changes. So we do try. We will try to always be on the same days and the same times, but sometimes the topic's going to change according to what pops into Toby's brain. So
So I should mention that my East Coast trip is out to Washington to visit two of my daughters, and I'll spend some time with them. I'm also making a one-day trip up to New York City to visit my new
niece,
great grandniece, right?
Well, Santos is your
nephew.
So
it's
it's
my
your
grandniece, my new grandniece. I want to say hi with her, so I'm going to take the train up for one day. But if you guys are on the Virginia side of the Washington D.C. area, let me know, and maybe we can squeeze in a coffee or something like that. So,
and make sure that you like this video with a thumbs up, subscribe, and click the bell to get notifications, and share it with your social media network, so that we can grow our community. And then we aren't so weird when we have a bigger community. We say we're not weird. Look, everybody lives here.
Yeah, we like it.
It's all us. Okay, so are we good?
Well, I think we're good.
And thank you so much for joining us today, for all your comments and questions, and for your super chat as well. We appreciate you being here. And for Gypsy's Kiss the vlog, I'm Shelley Carney.
And if you had a question that didn't get answered today, make sure that once this video is posted as a video, put it in the comments below the video, and I'll make sure that I get an answer to it. I also wanted to say thank you to our moderators who do a great job of keeping us safe and the chat room moving forward in a friendly way. I'm Toby Eunice. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow night on the panel.
Bye-bye.